Hey guys, Benjamin Albright, NFL Underground. I want to talk to you today about the Phantom Football Forum. Designed to give you greater access to me. You get the latest intel, insider information, rumors, news, notes, injury information, Vegas lines, fantasy football, power rankings. Watch football games live with me. Phantom Football Forum. Only $1 for your first month if you sign up today. Facebook.com/WatchPhantom. The link right here. Come join us today.
Hey! What's going on, everybody? How are you? I am Ari Temkin, broadcasting live on Phantom, the New World Order of Sports Media. Thank you all for being a part of today's show. Maybe I went a little bit of extreme on the title for today's show, so my apologies if you took it that way. Like, why would it be time to panic? What are you, stupid? I guess then the answer would be no, it's not time to panic. I figured, I just leave it out there if people want to panic. Wade Zetterberg says I panicked once. ... Anyways, I am Ari Temkin, part of the pre- and post-game show, the Dallas Cowboys radio network on 105.3 The Fan. We're broadcasting live across multiple platforms and channels, so thank you all for being a part of today's broadcast. Make sure to post your comments, hit the share button, and let's get this thing rolling. What did you like? What did you not like about the Cowboys preseason game number 3 last night at AT&T Stadium against the Cardinals? It was probably one of the most boring, worst games I've ever seen. To put it lightly, it was kind of an abomination, if we're being completely honest. The Cowboys had 8 turnovers, including 2 muffed punts. They had 3 other fumbles, 3 interceptions, 5 fumbles overall and 3 interceptions. Not exactly the blueprint for what you're looking for out of a dress rehearsal in week 3 of the preseason. Now, as I'm sure a lot of people figured during the game and then also came to the conclusion after the game, Dak Prescott didn't play, Zeke Elliott didn't play, Zach Martin didn't play, Tyron Smith didn't play. So, you've got a lot of guys that are not necessarily deciding the Cowboys' fate this year out there, leading to all those turnovers. But defense played well, especially the first team defense. I think there is something to worry about when it comes to their first team defense. Cody Arnold says it was terrible, just terrible. Gregory looked good. Johnny Aguilar says, boy, the preseason sucks, and if they play like that, we don't have a chance. Curtis Stark says, hey, Ari, what's up? What's going on, Curtis Starks? Neil Favre in the house. I don't want to see another starter on defense in the last preseason game. Give them the extra week of rest and watch them be ready to roll fresh in week 1. They look very fast. Well, yeah, preseason week 4 is always the reserves. The majority of the final preseason game is going to be guys that are selling insurance in a couple of weeks. But, yeah, their defense is fast. Their front 7 looks good. There is a worry, though, about their defense. And I think, everybody is quick to point out how good their defense looks. And last night during the postgame show, Jesse Holley brought this point up, and I think it's really interesting. The Cowboys gave up 150 yards on 27 carries to Arizona yesterday. The Cowboys gave up over 5 yards per carry, and David Johnson did not play a snap last night for Arizona. That's worrisome. And when you have a good pass rush and you have an aggressive defense, sometimes you can neutralize that defense, especially that defensive front, by running the football. And though I think we should all be very, very excited about what we've seen from the defensively, when you have a good pass rush, the best way to slow down a good pass rush is by running the football effectively, and Arizona did that last night. And again, they did it without Arizona did it last night without David Johnson doing it. So that's worrisome as we sort of sit here and champion the defense. Jenny Garcia says, how worried are you after last night's game? Eric Kashani says, SMH. Why are you shaking your head, Eric? Cowboys players can't spell insurance, let alone sell it. Laughing emoji. Be that as it may, that's a unfair assumption, Wade, that you're making about a broad scope of players, but I digress. Laura Canfield-Jones says hello. Hey. David Saldivar says, we good guys, relax. Art Estrada says, another losing season. Jerry has to be admitted to his psych ward and Garrett has to go. Just not sure who can turn this team around. Wow. Joe Tranchina, my buddy, on the Dallas Cowboys America's team page says, 8 turnovers in one game, a total disgrace. I can't believe I stayed up till 5 in the morning to watch this disgrace. Yeah, that's right, you're in Italy. Wow. Yeah, I can't either. I also can't believe you stayed up until 5 o'clock in the morning. You didn't turn it off at halftime? Joe, it's the preseason, brother. Ross McCaden says, I'm very worried, just being honest. You know, it's funny because I've been pretty optimistic about this team all offseason. I said, you know, I think this is a 10-win team. Just ask Wade Zetterberg. He believes that I'm placating to the Cowboys fan base. I am becoming more and more pessimistic about this team's chances by the day. And I don't think we should be worried based on last night's preseason game. I certainly think there are areas of concern there, but when you look at the 8 turnovers and you know, you start with Cooper Rush, who has not played well at all this preseason. Mike White did not play much better. You know, because of that, it's difficult to get anything going offensively. So you're behind the 8 ball when it comes to play calling. I think all that's now, you know, all that is a part of it now when you look at the turnovers. So I'm becoming more and more pessimistic by the day, not because of what happened last night, but because of the Travis Frederick, what he's dealing with. I want to say injury, but it's not an injury. I mean, we're talking about an illness, a syndrome that's probably going to take him out for the entire season. I'm becoming more and more pessimistic because of Zach Martin's status. And I know, you know, Zach Martin is going to be available and ready to go September 9th, week 1, but he's got a bone bruise. And there's not enough time between now and the start of the regular season that he's going to be able to fully heal that bone bruise. So, you know, that's worrisome. And the wear and tear that he's going to take on throughout the course of the year, will he be able to play enough and be able to be available for 16 games? You know, that's what's worrisome for me. Let's see here. Enyi from the Dallas Prospects says, what's up, Ari? Enyi, how are you, buddy? Chris Bennett says, Earl Thomas Price keeps going up with every safety Dallas loses. That's right. Kayvon Frazier. The Cowboys have no free safeties, so they're basically starting 2 strong safeties. That's what we saw last night with Jeff Heath and Kayvon Frazier starting. Frazier left the game with a shoulder injury. After the game, he said he tried to pop it back in himself. It didn't work, so the medical team did. The x-rays were negative, so all good for Kayvon Frazier. But, I mean, at this point, they're basically starting 2 strong safeties at their safety position. So there's certainly some fear and worry from what's going on now at the back end of their defense in the secondary. Johnny Rodriguez says we need a safety ASAP. Go Earl Thomas now. He also says we should try to get Teddy Bridgewater as our backup. Ross McCaden says, what do you think of Chris Richard as a replacement for Jason Garrett? I love it. He is on my short list for guys I think could be replacing Jason Garrett after this season. Richard, and then I like the Oklahoma head coach. I think the NFL is going now more towards younger, smart, offensive-minded, outside-the-box thinkers. You know, that is Lincoln Riley. So those would be my 2 guys on my list for guys that could replace Jason Garrett. But But it's bizarre because, so last night's game, you have Chris Richard. I didn't see it because I was at the game, but on TV, the NBC cameras caught him laying into the defense. And that's, fans want to see that. When their team is struggling, they want to see a rah-rah coach that's firing up the base. That they don't want to see a guy just clapping on the sideline. They don't want to see Mr. Clapper. But that's Jason Garrett to a T. I mean, he's never too high, never too low. So that, to me, could become very problematic for this season for the Cowboys because you've got one coach who a lot of people already want to be the next head coach of the Cowboys, who is aggressive and he's out there and he's fiery and he's firing up his group, and then you've got Jason Garrett who's just kind of silently clapping. It's the aesthetics of it. I don't think it means much as far as who's a better coach. I think Chris Richard's a better coach for a lot of other reasons. Nothing to do with how fiery they be. There's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to coaching, right? There are soft-spoken, not fiery kind of guys that can become pretty good head coaches. So, I don't necessarily think that's indicative of good coaching, but I do think that fans, especially specific to the Cowboys, look at that as being indicative of a good head coach. Let's see here. Checking in on the Dallas Cowboys America's Team page, which if you are on that page, shout out to all you folks. Make sure to hit the share button. Make sure to hit the like button. What is this? Kapil Magar? Kapil? He says, I'm an unfair kind of guy. Eric Kashani says, you think we'll ever do away with preseason? It's become a liability. No, because the owners still make money on it. And because the owners still make money on it, they're not going to do anything with it. And, it's basically 5 weeks in the preseason. When if you count the two teams that play in the Hall of Fame game, I mean, it's ridiculous how long it is, but it's more, an opportunity for the owners to make more money. Let's see here. Michelle Scott says, I already miss Witten. Yeah, tight end's probably an issue for the Cowboys at this point. Tim Hudson says, Dak didn't play, Zeke didn't play, Zach Martin didn't play. I'm going to take a line from Aaron Rodgers, when he went on the radio early, a couple of years ago, early on in the season when they were struggling, and he just said, RELAX, relax. Which, again, if you're saying this in relation to the post of the stream, which is time to panic, I certainly understand. Yes, it's not. Of course, it's not time to panic. It's a preseason game, which there's probably no correlation whatsoever between the preseason and the regular season. There doesn't seem to be any correlation between having a good preseason and having a good regular season. Sometimes guys have a good preseason and have a horrible regular season. Sometimes guys have a good preseason and they have a good regular season. So when you look at patterns in recent history, there doesn't seem to suggest any correlation between the two. Keith Stone says, but does he have enough of an offensive mind to take over head coaching? That's a great question. I always, when you hire a head coach, they come from whether an offensive or a defensive background. Some special teams coordinators, but for the most part, it's either offensive or defensive coordinators. We're talking about Chris Richard now. I think you have to have a baseline knowledge of the other side of the ball, but I also am a big fan of empower an offensive coordinator to come in and take that over. You want to oversee it if you're the head coach, and you have to have a baseline knowledge of offensive principles in order to become a quality head coach. But sometimes I think if you hire an offensive-minded head coach, now all of a sudden they're prone to calling plays, which can sometimes get in the way of being an overall head coach, which obviously was Jason Garrett's problem, which is why they made him more into a walk-around head coach. All right, what else is everybody talking about? Look at Bill Belichick. Wade Zetterberg knows what I'm talking about. He's a defensive-minded coach, but that guy, over the course of his career as being a head coach, knows so much about offensive philosophy when it comes to football. So, over time, if you're a defensive-minded head coach, over time, you should start to, gravitate more towards the offensive side, the side you know less about. That way you can then, understand more about offensive philosophies and principles and make you better, more well-rounded. Carlos Beast Mode Zapien says, we aren't showing what we have. It's preseason. Relax, y'all. It's the preseason. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's no game planning in the preseason. We're not seeing any of the schematics. We've heard all offseason. We saw in training camp, they are going to be more creative offensively just based on their personnel and their packaging. But we're not going to see much, and we shouldn't see much of that creativity, manifest itself in the play calling offensively. Because why would you show anything in the preseason? Brian Walker asks, what's the status of Zach Martin? Will he be ready week 1? Yes. I mentioned this on Monday at practice. Zach Martin was limping around. I shouldn't say limping around. When I saw Zach Martin after practice last Monday, a week ago, he was limping. He was walking with a noticeable limp. This was 2 days removed from the injury, the bone bruise that he suffered. By Thursday, when I saw him in the locker room after practice, he was not limping at all. So, he's getting better quickly. Again, he's got a bone bruise. We don't know how severe it is, but he is going to be ready to play September 9th, week 1. There's no question that he's going to be ready to play week 1 of the regular season, 2 weeks from yesterday? So the only question then is, will playing in NFL games, which means more wear and tear, will that allow him to continue to play all season? Will he be healthy enough to play in 16 games this season? That's the biggest question for the Cowboys, and probably one of the reasons I'm less optimistic by the day when it comes to this team. They're going to be without Travis Frederick. Can Martin stay healthy? Can Tyron Smith stay healthy? They're not going to be very good if they're going to have to play significant games this year without Zach Martin and Tyron Smith, along with Travis Frederick, who, again, I'm assuming is going to miss the entire regular season this year. On the Dallas Cowboys report page, Servando Lopez says, what's up? Randy looked good. When are they going to call Earl? And William Rose says, I'm concerned about the offensive line. Randy Gregory continues to impress. Jason Lockenfora of CBS tweeted after the game last night that he's hearing there could be more trouble coming for Randy Gregory, with nothing to follow that up. No other outlet reported anything was wrong with Randy Gregory. Anything I've heard indicates there's nothing. So it's very bizarre for Lockenfora to report it. And then, I work with 105 Through the Fan. I host the pre- and post-game show on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And Sean Sharif was saying this morning during the morning show, I reached out to Jason Lockenfora to have him come on. He said he was in meetings all day. What kind of BS is that? You report that a guy that's, been reinstated by the NFL on a very, 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 very thin line here. Like, Randy Gregory he's got to report to the NFL basically every hour. Every hour he has to be accounted for. He is a very, very tight rope that he's walking right now. So to basically say that you heard he's got more issues, like, what are you hearing? It was just a very incomplete report, and there's been no follow-up. And then, of course, when the Dallas media reaches out to be like, hey, man, you want to come on and talk about this? He's like, no, I'm in meetings all day. I can't come out of these meetings to talk to you and to talk through some of these things that are going on. So it's kind of BS from my vantage point. Also broadcasted live across the EBSN online platform. Shout out to EBSN and producer G, Big Game James, and the Silver and Blue Nation page. EBSN online, Robert Mathis says, no, it was the preseason as far as time to panic. Well said. Elliot Torres says, turnovers are horrible. Juwan James says, love the first team defense, hate the turnovers and backup units. Elliot Torres says their defense will get better. And Juwan James says if it wasn't for that long touchdown run, wouldn't be that bad. Look, again, what's amazing about football is you seem to take care of one side of the ball. And by the time then you start to, invest some draft capital and other assets into the other side of the ball, it's like you plug up holes over here, right? And so you plug those holes up and they're good to go. And then you walk over to this side, you try to plug up these holes, and all of a sudden, by the time you plugged up these holes over here, the plugs initially that you plugged up are now they're leaking again, right? Like the offensive line was plugged up. So now they go to the defense, and that's plugged up. And all of a sudden, Travis Frederick is missing time with an illness, and and Zach Martin's hurt, and Tyron Smith's got a bad back. It's like, how did this happen? The offensive line was the thing that we could count on, and now all of a sudden the defense looks like the thing we can count on when we haven't been able to count on the defense in years. But I guess that's football. When you have an average career of an NFL player is 3 years, it's just really tough to plug up all the holes. And right now the defense is playing as well as he's probably playing better than the offense has. And the defense has been playing extremely well all preseason, all through training camp. It's potentially something to really, that could really become a major asset for them. But now it's like, well, how much is their offense going to fall off, especially without Travis Frederick? Let's see here. Edwards Loganville on the Phantom page says, Green was hurt. He's getting better. Relax. He's not a first rounder. What are you expecting? I guess Ray Pierce wants to know why is Chaz Green still on the team? Look, I mentioned this before. Chaz Green's not going to make this team. It's going to be very difficult for him to make this team. they're going to probably keep 8. And I'm guessing the 8th guy they're going to keep, the normal 5, plus Joe Looney, Cam Fleming, and now Kadeem Edwards, I believe. Kadeem Edwards, I thought, played well yesterday. He's had a good camp. He's their 8th. They might end up keeping 9 offensive linemen, and if they do, the 9th is probably going to be somebody from outside the organization. It's somebody that is cut this Friday as part of the 1,100 that are going to become available once final cuts are happening. So I just don't think Chaz Green's going to make this football team. All right, let's see here. Also broadcasting, as I mentioned, across EBSN Online and the Silver and Blue Nation. Shout out to all you folks watching across the Silver and Blue Nation. And let's see if I can bring that stream up here, which I will try to as soon as possible. Why is this not letting me see it? Bear with me. Everybody hit the share button if you wouldn't mind. Post your comments. I'll get back to the Dallas Cowboys America's team page in a moment here. Here's the stream on the Silver and Blue Nation page. Shout out. Jacob Eric Falcon says, what happened with Cooper Rush last night? He wasn't very good. Margarito Gomez says, I'm not worried. The defense is going to be scary. Marvin Hargrove says, our starting defense gave up only 3 points. Ruben Sanchez says, 4th game is always a play for your spot game, but damn it, they barely tried last night. Dustin Hancock says, no Sean Lee had our defense last night. Bob Sloniker says 5 yards a carry with the starters in. Better check your math. No. I just said 5 yards per carry overall defensively. They gave up on the running with the running game. The Cowboys defense, which again looks really good, but gave up 5 yards per carry on the ground. Not with their starters, but I mean that's a hard thing. What do you had starters in and out. I mean you had certain starters played more snaps than others, but the majority of their defensive starters basically played the entire first half, and they gave up some. They gave up something in the running game. And that's like when you have a good pass rush, it's just basic football. If you have a good pass rush, the way to slow down a good pass rush is through your running game. And so that is an area, as good as the defense has looked, the Cowboys defense is susceptible. Trey Goodwin says we're going to do well with our defense is looking better than it has in a very long time. Our offense will come. It's along with the same team. We need to clean up special teams and find a backup quarterback. Ray Bradford says we don't have a backup quarterback, and we doing Olds plays does show bad play calling. Again, they're not going to show much in the preseason. So, what we're seeing from them from a play calling perspective is more just bland, preseason kind of game planning. So it's what you'd expect out of the preseason. Edwards Loganville says we'll regret giving up on Chaz. Mark my words. Perhaps. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will keep Chaz Green. I think it kind of comes down to, are they going to keep 8 or 9 offensive linemen? If they keep 8, I'm thinking the 8 they're going to keep are their 5 starters, Joe Looney, Cam Fleming, and Kadeem Edwards. Now, maybe they keep... Now, I'm counting Travis Frederick in there. The Cowboys can obviously put him on short-term IR, which means he doesn't have to be on their active roster. He misses, at least the first, 8 weeks or 6 weeks of the season if he's on short-term IR. But then maybe they keep 8 with Chaz Green, or they go outside the organization and find somebody else. But I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, I think at this point, I don't. I haven't seen much of positivity from Chaz Green to be like, yeah, they should keep him. Chaz Green had played well up until last year when he was basically as bad as air at playing left tackle in that Atlanta game. And I think, psychologically that Atlanta game undid him as much as it undid the psyche of the Cowboys roster, an offensive roster. So, I haven't seen him rebound very well at all in any capacity. He's not looked good at all in training camp. He hasn't looked very good in the preseason. So he just doesn't do much to stand out. Warren Merle says corners looked okay. Carlos Zapien says, I'm a Gator. Chaz Green has to go. Mike Dillinger says 5-win season. Ouch. If the Cowboys lose any of their additional offensive linemen, namely Zach Martin or Tyron Smith for an extended period of time, they're going to struggle. Travis Frederick, the loss of Frederick, and again, if you haven't heard, I think the Cowboys have to plan for him not to play all year. And I know, you've all heard the recovery times vary, and it could be short, it could be only a month or 2 months. But, again, I want to reference a doctor, a neurologist that the Dallas Morning News quoted, as saying that if you try to, if you come back too quickly, and especially you're doing rigorous physical activity like playing football, you could have major setbacks in the recovery process, and even worse, you could put yourself at risk for reoccurrence. So I think, first and foremost, the Cowboys need to plan for him not to be available this year. They can't do this whole waiting for Travis Frederick to come back thing, because they just have to plan in the psyche of that locker room like he's not going to be back all year. Because right now it's just a this year problem. But if you hurry Travis Frederick back, and now he's putting himself at a greater risk for reoccurrence of the injury, that this could now become a next year and even beyond problem. So look, if you just say he's out for this entire year, it's just a this year problem. Worst case scenario, just all this year. Best case scenario, he's able to come back at some point this year. But again, we heard from a neurologist saying you do rigorous physical activity like playing football and you come back too quickly from GBS, you put yourself at greater risk for re-injury, for having a setback in the recovery, or even worse, a reoccurrence of the illness itself. Let's see what else we got. Chris Heinz Roth says, I know it's preseason, but 8 turnovers, that's terrible. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was about as bad of a football game as you'll ever see. It was, we got to the third quarter and it was oh my God, I feel bad for people that actually paid to be here. That sucks. I feel horrible for those people. Let's see here. You're talking about Chaz Green, Ray? Ray, you don't have to fight about Ray. You don't have to fight about Chaz Green. Edwards Loganville says he had one bad game. Atlanta, name another not preseason. I will wait. Well, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but after the Atlanta game, he didn't really play. They brought Ryan Russell in because he was so bad in that game. So, now he's trying to compare the one bad game he had to Romo. I mean, Romo threw 5 INTs in a game, but he's also thrown 8 touchdown passes in a game. How many great starts has Chaz Green had? Edwards, I appreciate you fighting the fight, but you're willing to die on the Chaz Green hill? Okay, that's an interesting hill to be dying on. Let's see here. Neil Favre says a fresh Zeke is about to run wild. He'll be the player who makes the difference. This offense and defense tick. Hearing nothing but great things about him and can't wait. Yeah, well said. Zeke is great. If he's not the best running back in the NFL, he's the second best running back in the NFL. I'm of the opinion he's the best running back in the NFL. So, he's going to make the whole thing go on offense. And he'll make it easier on Joe Looney. But, I still think, even with how good Zeke is, they can't lose another lineman. And more specifically, they have the big 3 offensive linemen, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. They can't lose another one of those guys. And the problem is, Tyron Smith has a bad back, which as you get older, backs don't just magically get better. So he's going to have a bad back. So how can he manage that throughout the course of the season? And then, of course, there's the bone bruise on Zach Martin. So, the biggest issues I see for the Cowboys this year is if they can't get Zach Martin and Tyron Smith to be healthy for all 16, they're gonna have problems, because now you're talking about playing without Travis Frederick and without Tyron Smith and without Zach Martin at some point, which is you're just not gonna have a really good offensive line. And people that are well, they have to improve their offensive line. I get it, but it's not most teams don't even have a good starting offensive line. So how many teams have the luxury of having quality backups along the offensive line? Raymond Tippett says, "What's up? What's up, Raymond? How are you?" Brian Walker says Connor Williams looked okay. Hopefully he can hold up. Yeah, no. I think it'll be good. Connor Williams will be fine. But the problem is, it's just more difficult for him because initially he was going to be playing next to Travis Frederick, which is going to make things a lot easier. Zach Martin, when we were in the locker room post-practice on Thursday, all reacting with the team to the Travis Frederick news, Martin made mention, I asked him, what's it going to be like? Because this will be the first time you've ever played an NFL game without Travis Frederick being next to you. Travis Frederick has started 80 straight games, and of course, he started 16 before Zach Martin played, so subtract 80 from 16, and that's how many starts Zach Martin has had consecutive next to 64. next to Travis Frederick. So he's played 64 games next to Travis Frederick. So there is, when it comes to, combination blocks, what Zach Martin wants to do relative, like there is a lot of silent communication, if you will. There are things that Martin knows that Frederick doesn't have to say to him. There's a familiarity, though, with those two guys, right guard and center, that they're going to lose now without Frederick, with Joe Looney in at center. They're not going to have that same communication or nonverbal communication that they knew so well from each other. So that's a huge piece. And Lincoln Kennedy, by the way, a former All-Pro for the Oakland Raiders, was on the pregame show with us yesterday and basically said the same thing, that there's a lot of nonverbal communication that happens between offensive linemen with a familiarity there. And that's true with Zach Martin, Travis Frederick. Zach even said that much. So, it's Joe Looney is good, and I think the Cowboys, if they are ever in position to replace an all-pro center like Travis Frederick, I think they are certainly in that position. But one of the things they're going to be missing is that ability to communicate without ever having to say something, the ability to have teammates that know where each other is going to be. And that familiarity, that corporate knowledge, if you will, is going to be gone, and they're going to have to reestablish that to some degree when it comes to Joe Looney being at center. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Pete Ramirez says, have they cut number 14? He needs to go packing. Lance Lenoir? You're ready to cut Lance Lenoir? Warren T. Merle says, what happens if Dallas gets 10 wins? Does Garrett stay? Yes, I believe so. Carlos Beast Mode Zappien says, Tiger Woods' back has gotten better with age. LOL. Has it? I don't know that that's true. Cody Arnold says, you think Lenoir sealed his fate, or is he totally to blame for both fumbles? So he was not to blame for the first fumble. That was totally on Byron Jones, but he certainly was to blame for the second fumble. Here's the thing that sucks for Lance Lenoir. This is a guy that has made play after play after play in training camp and preseason games. But when you're on the bubble to make the roster, you just have to keep making plays and over and over and over again. And you have to keep outdoing yourself. And so, but then you go into last night's game, preseason week number 3, and it's like, Jesse Holley, who was in a similar situation, he's my co-host on the pre and post game show on 105 to the Fan, and he was basically saying, like, you just, in your mind, you have to go out there and make something happen because you just have to continually make great plays. And so that was the mindset of Lance Lenoir last night. Like, he's not normally a punt returner. They were trying him out in that spot. And, he fumbles his first one because Byron Jones runs into him. And then now he's already thinking he's got to, overcompensate for what happened in the first, muffed punt. And he muffs the second punt. So, he put a lot of pressure on himself, I'm sure, to go out there and perform. But at the same time, it's like, will that be the reason why he's cut? I think he's had a great preseason. If he gets cut, I'd be surprised if the Cowboys would be able to keep him. So now it comes down to, will they keep Lance Lenoir, who's performed really, really well the entire preseason, the entire training camp, did not play well last night, or do they cut a guy like Deontay Thompson, who they signed to a decent deal this offseason, who is a known commodity in the NFL, especially relative to Lance Lenoir, but hasn't played much because he's been dealing with the sore Achilles. I'm worried about a guy that's missed a ton of training camp because of a sore Achilles, and a guy whose success is predicated on his speed. Like, I'm very fearful of that if I'm the Cowboys and it's coming down to final roster cuts. Enyi says the best years the Cowboys have had in recent years have come off bad preseason and low expectations. It's a good point. And again, I wrote "Time to Panic" kind of tongue in cheek on the post for this, and I wasn't being serious. It's not time to panic when you talk about the preseason. Of course not. There is no correlation between performance in the preseason and success in the regular season. There's just no correlation between the two. So, of course it's not time to panic based on, lack of performance in any capacity whatsoever in the preseason. But there's certainly some issues to look through and to unpack. And, for me, the biggest issue and the biggest reason that I'm becoming more and more pessimistic about the Cowboys' chances this year is because of their offensive line. They're built to win on their offense, and they're built to win with their offensive line. And, maybe Frederick comes back at some point this year, but I think the Cowboys have to plan for Frederick to be out for the entire year. All right, keep your comments coming. I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can. Thank you to all of you who are commenting, who hit the share button, who are part of the stream every single day. I'm Ari Temkin from 105 Through the Fan, broadcasting live every day on Phantom, the new world order of sports media. We deliver live sports and sports content to the digital spaces where you are. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you are, we are delivering live content. So make sure to check out the page at facebook.com/Watch Phantom. And if you're posting comments in here and it's taking forever for me to get to them, I try to navigate through all the different pages we're broadcasting through. But a reminder, the page that gets the best access for me to check the comments on is at Phantom's page. So go to facebook.com/Watch Phantom and stream right there. Let's see here. Mike Dillinger says Prescott will run into injuries. Mark Martin says look like top needs maybe offensive line and safety in 2019 draft. Potentially. Sam Gutierrez, when is Earl Thomas showing up? Look, I don't know what the holdup on the Earl Thomas deal is. I don't know if it's the Seahawks just being completely unwilling to trade for Earl Thomas, the Cowboys, based on any price. I don't know if the Cowboys could get that deal done today. If they called up and said we'll give you a second round pick, like to me, if it's that easy, then the Cowboys need to do that deal. Call them up and give up a second round pick. I think you do that for Earl Thomas right now, but I don't know if it's that easy. I don't know if it's if Seattle be willing to part with Earl Thomas to the Cowboys, even if it's for a second round pick. So it kind of comes down to whose court is the ball in, if you will. G. Garcia says you're giving up the Cowboys, Ari? No. I'm just becoming less and less optimistic. And especially because, their offensive line, this is a problem. When you're built to win based on your big three on the offensive line, you start to lose these guys, that you're not going to be as good. Especially for a team that hasn't been able to consistently overcome injuries. Tyler Cutright says Richard needs to be the head coach. He might be. Christian Blanche says no Zeke, no line. The defense looks good. Yeah, I think that's fair. Lamar Hant says who gets cut, Darius Jackson or Bo Scarborough? I think Darius Jackson. Dusty Brandon says we should sign a free agent quarterback. Also, Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know if he's going to make free agency. He seems to be the only guy. He seems to be a guy that has some sort of a market. Now, if he gets released, it's going to be tough to pick him up. So now it comes down to what kind of draft capital are the Jets looking for Bridgewater. Look, I'm very concerned about the backup quarterback position for the Cowboys. Cooper Rush has not played well this preseason. I think he's completing 65% of his passes, which is fine. The problem is the 275 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks he's had. He's not looked good. He's not inspired much confidence. So now it comes down to, okay, you want to go out and get Teddy Bridgewater. I'm fine with you. What's it going to take? I'm not giving up a second or a third round pick for Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not giving up a 4th round pick probably for Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe a 5th. So what do the Jets want in return? And then what are other teams willing to offer? Kelly Nichols says win, lose or draw, Cowboys rule them all. Well said, Kelly. Homer and Emma Ramirez says Randy Gregory looking good. Yeah, Randy Gregory. Defense looks good. Pass rush looks good. Their front 7 looks good. Their secondary, their corners look really good. Brian Walker says NFC East is going to be a tough division this year. Cowboys will need to step up their game. Yeah, and not only that, but they play the AFC South, which is a really good division. Remember, the AFC South had 2 playoff teams last year with Jacksonville and Tennessee. Plus, Houston gets their quarterback back. Deshaun Watson's back. Plus, the Colts get their quarterback back. So, the AFC South is one of the best divisions in football. And then the NFC South is the other division that the NFC East teams play. Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans. Those are 3 really good teams. So, yeah, the NFC is tough. The NFC East is tough. And the Cowboys schedule is tough. Billy Burke says, why is it so hard to find a good offensive lineman? Hundreds of them enter the draft every year. The Cowboys have, this is what people, I guess, don't understand, is very few teams have good starting offensive lines. Okay, the Cowboys have one of the best in football. The problem is now they've hit a little bit of a snag with health when it comes to their offensive linemen. But, very few teams have good enough starting offensive linemen, let alone good enough backups. So, the Cowboys have found 3 All-Pros on their offensive line, and Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick. Okay, that's better than the majority of teams in the NFL. Majority of teams don't have 3 All-Pros along their offensive line. So, the issue here is the Cowboys are going to have some issue trying to replace those All-Pro guys if they have injuries or issues like they have. So, but very few teams have good enough offensive lines, so they're not going to have, backups are not going to be good, and the Cowboys probably have better backups than most teams do. So, it's just, again, when it's hard enough in the NFL to field an offensive line with 5 good ones, you're not going to find 6 or 7 or 8 good ones. It's really difficult to do that. I think the Cowboys do have that. That's what's crazy is Looney looks pretty good. Cam Fleming looks pretty good. Kadeem Edwards looks pretty good. So, where the Cowboys are at from an offensive line standpoint, I mean, they have an All-Pro at center. He's got Guillain-Barré syndrome. So you have to deal with that. Zach Martin is a bone bruise. If they don't have health concerns with their offensive line, then their offensive line continues to be the best positional group on the team. All right, on the Dallas Cowboys report page, Peggy Guy says, I'm here. Hey, Peggy, how are you? William Rowe says, do you think we can get a good safety after cuts? Terry Washington says, where is Connor Cook? Not being very good. Jesse Pope says, what's more important, a Pro Bowl safety or quality backups on the O-line? To me, it's priority over wants. Well, what's the priority, Jesse, in your opinion? I think are you talking about drafting? Well, are you talking about what the Cowboys decided on, which is the Cowboys decided to not trade a second-round pick for a Pro Bowl safety in Earl Thomas so they can draft Connor Williams. So they already made that decision. Jesse Pope says, true, but this team can do better than Chaz Green. Well, they're going to. I don't think Chaz Green's going to make this football team. It's very difficult for me to think that he's going to make this football team. Ian Goldberg says on the Phantom page, my fears, backup quarterback, backup left tackle, tight end position, Swain, default starter, Rico, best receiving tight end, and safety. Yeah. I think that's pretty good order. Look, 1,100 players are about to get cut. So 32 teams by Friday are going to cut 37 players each. So Law Nation and I already did the math. It's 1,100 players that are going to be free agents. So will one of them be an all-pro type safety? Probably not. But can they find a guy at free safety that they can plug in? Hopefully. And I think the priorities that the Cowboys will have once final cuts happen will be at offensive line and safety. But again, they have to make their final cuts and then and then figure out who they then want to pick up and then who they want to cut because of that. So, that'll be something that'll be something interesting to see. All right, let me check in on the Law Nation Facebook page. We got comments over there. Yes, Richard Elizondo is watching over there. So is Johnny Kaz, Marcy Shabazz, Joshua Skinner, Arnita Paris, Marlon Estrella. David Esquibel says, everybody calm, TF down, we got this. Sunglasses emoji, 100 emoji. Keep it at 100. All right. I get, if you're optimistic or you say, everybody calm down, relax, what do you think the Cowboys are a playoff team? Do you think they're Super Bowl caliber? And again, I'm not saying that's not a reasonable thing to say, relax. Because, again, it's just the preseason and you're not going to see much. We get into the regular season and these problems happen. They have 8 turnovers. You got a different story. But, if you're part of the camp that says, everything will be fine, what do you mean? What do you mean by everything will be fine? What does that mean? They're going to be a playoff team? They're a Super Bowl contender? What do you mean by everything's going to be fine? Johnny Kaz says, this organization for the last 20 years has been so content with mediocrity. I miss old crazy Monday spending Jerry. At least we had a chance every year to improve. We've ignored safety, defensive tackle, and backup quarterback for years, as well as coaching. These quick cheap fixes have never worked. Well, look, I think the Cowboys, when they were in their spend heavy mode under Jerry, were not very good. They weren't drafting well. Their Clint Proctor says it's the preseason again. It's the preseason. Yes, well said, buddy. They didn't draft well at all. I'd like, if I'm a fan of a team, I'd like them to be better. I'd like them to look like they have this last decade than they did the previous decade when they were just crazy out there spending like madmen. where they didn't draft well at all. So they've overcorrected. Now they draft exceedingly well and they don't spend any money in free agency. And I'm of the belief that you want to build your team through the draft, and the core of your team has to be built through the draft, but then you have to be able to, overcompensate for your holes in free agency. And that's something the Cowboys have not done. I mean, look at the safety position in particular. I mean, the safety position has been a problem the entire offseason, and they did nothing to address it in any capacity. They didn't invest any draft capital in it, and they didn't go out in free agency and address it. So, people are like, well, is there now a greater need to improve the safety position because of these injuries? No, there was always a need to improve the safety position. They didn't go out there and put any assets whatsoever in any capacity to the safety position. Let's see here. G. Garcia says, why am I the only one sharing, guys? Come on, share. Thank you. Why are you the only one sharing? Or is it just you're the only one that it lists as a sharer and everybody else shares in secrecy? Because you are consistently the only one that it says you're sharing this, but you can't be the only one to share this. By the way, hit the share button if you wouldn't mind. Sharing is caring. That'd be fantastic. And thank you to all of our partners across the Phantom platform, Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, EBSN Online, Big Game James, the Dallas Cowboys America's team page. Am I missing anybody else? I've got a lot of great partners. Dallas Cowboys Really Real fan page. The Dallas Cowboys Report. We got a lot of partners that are helping us out here at Phantom to spread the stream every single day. So thank you to all you partners, and thanks to everybody who joins the stream every day, and thank you for your participation. Billy Burke on the Dallas Cowboys America's team page says Lee and Jalen will be two-headed beast with the defensive line. Joe Tranchina says, I always share. I believe you do, Joe. I believe that. I don't know. It just doesn't, like, for some reason for G. Garcia it says sharer above his name, but nobody else it does. But at any rate, what other comments do you guys have? By the way, I'm Ari Temkin from 105 Through the Fan. You can catch me streaming every single day at noon Central. So be a part of the stream every day. Hit the share button, post your comments. And again, I try to scroll through all the different pages that we're sharing this broadcast on. But if you want me to get to your comment quicker, make sure to go to the facebook.com/Watch Phantom page. That's FANTOM, because that's where I'm able to address comments the quickest. Leroy Terry says we still have a coaching problem. I don't disagree with that. Let's see what else we got. Just want to make sure I'm checking in on the Big Game James page. Just want to make sure I got all my pages covered, all my bases covered. So what else is new, everybody? For some reason, my wireless is going really slow, but the stream seems like it's holding up pretty strong. All right, the Big Game James page says Jeff Chandler. He says hello, Yelp, Chance Warmack. Victor Solis says anything on Gregory. So yeah, I'm assuming people are curious about what Jason La Canfora from CBS tweeted last night. So about 10 o'clock, right as we went on for the post-game show last night, Jason La Canfora of CBS tweeted, hearing that there's more trouble brewing for Randy Gregory, but then had no follow-up tweet, which obviously, with Randy Gregory, a guy who's on a very short leash, to say the least, it's troubling to hear that. But we heard nothing after the fact. I tried to figure out what I could from people that know Randy Gregory, and there was nothing that I could substantiate. Sean Sharif from the Sean and RJ show in the mornings at 105 to the Fan said, he texted La Canfora about coming on, and La Canfora basically said he was in meetings all day, which is like, really, dude? So I'd say at this point looks like a little bit of smoke without much else. But so it doesn't look like we've heard much of anything substantial when it comes to these rumors from Jason La Canfora. Ray Pierce on the Phantom page says, is Malik Collins doing okay? Will he be playing? I believe so. Ian Goldberg says you should partner through the MCF page as well. What's the MCF page? We should. Hook it up, Ian. Get me in touch with the admin from the MCF page, because we'd love to partner with as many pages. That way we can broadcast to as many Cowboys fans as possible and try to reach as big of an audience. Michael Rosebud Rosales says Joe Thomas. Yeah, Joe their linebacking core went from being one of like probably a bottom 3 positional group on this team to being 1 or 2. I mean, to me, their offensive line is the best positional group on the team. But their linebacking core has become probably second best on the team, which is crazy considering, again, it was one of the worst on the team and had been. So, their linebacking core looks really, really good. Joe Thomas is one of those guys, kind of a Will McClay special, a guy that has been around, played for a couple of teams, never really caught on, but has played really well with the Cowboys so far. And when you look at Jalen Smith, the camp that he's had, preseason that he's had, plus we know how good Sean Lee can be when healthy. And then now you're talking about Damian Wilson, who's played well, and then you add now Joe Thomas, Leighton Van. I mean, they've got some guys along that that linebacking core. Justin March Lillard. I mean, they might end up cutting Chris Covington. So there are guys that they just drafted, like Chris Covington, that might not make this football team. And I mean that's a hard thing to do. Edwards Loganville says MCF is my Cowboys family on YouTube. Yeah, absolutely. I just got caught up with them. So they great content from my Cowboys family on YouTube. And by the way, follow us Phantom on YouTube as well. Just go to YouTube, search Watch Phantom, FANTOM, and we've got some big things coming up through the YouTube platform. So we're really excited about what we've got going on there. More news on that coming up. Neil Favre says Lock and is probably just expecting him to get into trouble again, purely speculation. Yeah, I'm not really sure what he was doing, but again, we didn't hear much at all after the fact. And again, then when he was contacted by the Dallas media to come on the record to say something, he didn't really do it. Tim Mariano says 8-8 at best. Mike Dillinger says 5-11. Ruben Gonzalez says 11-5. Marisol Garcia says, I understand it's only preseason, but damn, these back quarterbacks got to get it together. Yeah, their back quarterback situation's not good. Now it's listing Cody Arnold as a sharer. Thank you, Cody. Roster cuts will bring us as a backup quarterback. I dreamt it last night. All right, who'd you dream? Bridgewater is the one name that stands out. There's no other name that you're like, oh yeah, that guy, they could bring him in and he'd be a pretty good backup. Because, I mean, you've got Cooper Rush has, this is year 2 for him in his familiarity with his offense. So, that's meaningful. All right. Dusty Brandon says, as good as Jalen Smith is playing, does that mean LVE will get less snaps now? Yeah, probably. So I wonder if Leighton Vander Esch will be criticized as much as Taco Charlton was when he had a bad start to his career. My guess is he won't, because Jalen Smith is going to be showing out, so it'll, whereas last year they had a need at pass rush, so it was like when it was glaring for Taco Charlton, but this year, I think the excitement over the way Jalen Smith is playing will overinflate, or rather underinflate, I should say, the disappointment with Leighton Vander Esch. But we shall see. All right, I'm Ari Temkin. Thank you all for being a part of today's stream. Again, make sure to check me out every day at noon Central. It's 12 to 1 every single day across all these pages. And by the way, if you are an admin or you know admins of other Cowboys pages, send me a private message on Facebook. Reach out in some capacity. Would love to talk to you. Also, want to remind you that if you like what we're doing here at Phantom, make sure to check out our sponsors, BetDSI, BetDSI.com. It's only a game until you bet. Go to BetDSI.com now. When you sign up for an account, use promo code PHANTOM, F-A-N-T-O-M, and they will match whatever your initial deposit is up to $2,500. So let's say you go to BetDSI.com, you sign up for an account, you deposit $100, and use promo code PHANTOM, you will get $100 back. You put $1,000 in there, you get $1,000 of free money to play with at BetDSI.com. So again, go check out and support our sponsors. They want to keep the lights on for us here at Phantom. So go to BetDSI.com, sign up for an account, and use promo code Phantom. Again, I'm live every day at noon. I will also be out at practice this week, so I'll do some post-practice streams as well. More on that coming up. So make sure to check out and subscribe and hit the like button at Facebook.com/Watch Phantom. And then also check me out on Twitter. I am at Ari Sports. But thank you all for being a part of today's stream. Thank you to all the regulars, Ray Pierce, Wade Zetterberg, Ian Goldberg, Neil Favre, Curtis Starks, Joe Tranchina,